Okay, so this is part 2 of my discussion on anxiety and autism and how they interplay with one another in teenagers. If you missed part 1, please go find that, but feel free to watch the rest of this video if you would like. Today I'm going to go over 3 more ways that you can provide support for your teen to help them with their anxiety. So let's go ahead and get into it. A third way to help your teen is to adapt what's called cognitive behavioral techniques. Traditional CBT techniques have shown that they can be very effective in teens on the spectrum if they're modified a little bit. And some of the research out there suggests that parent-supported CBT can reduce anxiety in their teens 20 to 60%. And that's Wood et al. 2021 is the study that I'm getting that from. So how do we go about this? How can we help them? So one way to help them is to use what's called visual supports. So helping them visually identify their emotions, their physical sensations, and maybe what that is having different pictures that they have identified already. That person is anxious, or that person seems worried, or that person seems sad or depressed. Have that for them so when they don't quite have the words because they're elevated and anxious, maybe they can just point to that picture. That's how I feel right now. And then you as a parent will know, oh, they're feeling frustrated. They're feeling anxious. They're feeling upset. Now I understand why they're behaving this way. Another way to support them is to create what's called concrete scripts that they can follow so they can use these to cope. So instead of just saying, hey, practice the deep breathing, get more concrete with it. So what I need you to do is I need you to breathe in for 5, and we'll do it together. Breathe in for 5, pause, and now we're going to breathe out for 7. And we're going to keep doing that, breathing in for 5, out for 7. And making it very concrete for them. That way they know exactly what to do. There's no abstraction. Because again, when their mind is already elevated, it's going to be hard for them to decipher what exactly you mean unless you can get really concrete. And that kind of leads me to my next one, where you're going to focus on specific challenges for them versus something more broad. For instance, for this one is instead of telling them, oh, just study harder, or I know that you're anxious about school, so we'll just make more study time, is get really concrete about it. So more than likely, it's not that they're worried about all of their school. It's going to be one particular subject that's very difficult for them. Or maybe a test is coming up and they're getting really anxious about it. So talking about that particular test when giving examples and giving encouragement and giving advice, that's going to be much more impactful versus if you just say something way more broad. And if you take anything from this video, practice coping skills when they're not elevated. I cannot stress that enough. I tell people that all of the time. The only way that you're going to be able to use these coping skills when you're anxious is if you used it numerous times well before you were anxious. It's just like building up a muscle, right? If you're an athlete and you are going to run in a marathon, you don't expect yourself to just enroll and go and run in a 5K. No, you practice, you do it day after day after day. You make time for it. It's the same thing with coping skills. You've got to practice it ahead of time. So doing this when you're not stressed and when you're not elevated, so when you are, you've already got that muscle memory and you can go and do it. Number 4 would be to honor their sensory needs. Having noise-canceling headphones or comfortable clothing or having the environment be sensory friendly for them, it's not coddling. And these things are essential in order to bring their anxiety back down to baseline. And this is according to the Journal of Autism and Developmental Disorders. So what are some ways that we can help honor their sensory processing needs? So one way to do this is to develop what's called a sensory profile for them. So not just looking at what they're sensitive to or what they get overwhelmed by, but also sensory seeking behaviors, what soothes them down. So figuring out the sensory sensitivities, what's overwhelming for them. Maybe it's food sensory sensitivities. Certain clothing textures are overwhelming for them. Noise, lights, sounds, tastes, smells. What do they have a visceral reaction to? What do they get overwhelmed by? And also, what's soothing for them? So when they are in an environment that can be overwhelming, what are some different strategies that you guys can use to help accommodate for that? What's some different sensory things that soothe them down or block out the noise? So essentially what I'm talking about is to develop what's called a sensory toolkit and making that tailored to each environment that they're in. So at school, there might be different sensory issues versus at home. I keep going back to the fluorescent lighting because I hate fluorescent lighting. They have it a lot in schools. So what are some ways to help accommodate them? Maybe allowing them to wear sunglasses. Maybe that could help. It just depends on the needs of your kid and what the accommodations can do. Another thing is if you're going to be out in a crowded area, at a mall or going to a farmer's market, having noise canceling headphones. Again, these things are not coddling. In order for them to function, for them to be able to withstand all the sensory input that's coming in at them. Another thing to do is implement what's called sensory breaks. So if they're getting overwhelmed, or if you know that you're going to be in an environment that's overwhelming for them, making sure that they can have a break from that and just be able to decompress for 10, 15, 20 minutes and then rejoin after they've had some time to de-escalate a little bit. And of course, you can always modify the environment whenever that's possible, such as changing the lighting at home, decreasing the noise on the TV. All of these things can help, especially when you have some form of control over it. And a big thing that you can help teach your teen is self-advocacy. It's okay to speak up if you are getting overwhelmed. And there's some different ways that you can say it. You don't necessarily have to say, hey, I'm getting overwhelmed. I need to leave right now. Hey, I need a break from this. I'm going to step away for a bit. Or I've got something else going on and I'll talk to you later. And helping them reframe that, because they might be a little rigid. Well, isn't that lying? No, not necessarily. You do have something else going on that you don't necessarily want to share. You're getting overwhelmed in this environment. And that's okay for you to step away and take a break from it. Number 5 is to validate their feelings, validate their experiences. Saying there's nothing to worry about really helps them out, and it invalidates their legitimate concerns that they're having. Instead, acknowledge their struggles, acknowledge their feelings, and encourage them to use some of these coping skills. And guys, I'm going to give you the biggest one. Parent well-being. Yes, as a parent, whether you realize it or not, you have a lot of impact on your kid. So making sure that you're in a good space, that your anxiety is under control, and if it's not, that you're using these coping skills to help is going to be essential. So what are some different things that you as a parent can do to help with your own mental well-being? Well, one of them is to look in your local community to see if there's any groups of other parents that have autistic teenagers and autistic kiddos, because I guarantee you some of those other parents are going through very similar things that you are. And being around other people that are going through these situations not only helps normalize it, but you're going to be able to learn different strategies that worked for these different people that may work for you. Another one is practicing your own stress management. So making sure that you're exercising, that you're sleeping, that you're taking a nice long bath, that you're watching your favorite show, that you're taking time for you and different things that you normally do to kind of de-escalate yourself, and making space for that in your life. Another one is to identify and challenge some unhelpful parental thinking. So where having a teen on the spectrum and having a lot of anxiety, you can develop what's called cognitive distortions. So thinking that this will never get any better, or what's wrong with me, No. Take a step back. Be able to examine these issues. Be able to really think about your thinking. And is this helping me or is this hurting me? What is this doing for me when I think like this? And start changing it. Another thing, and I get this too, being a parent, you can get so sucked up into doing the routine of the day and engaging in all these different activities that you lose yourself. And maybe you lose support that you used to have from your family and friends. So making sure that you maintain some of that time, that you get to go hang out with your friends, that you spend time with family, that you get away from some of these problems now and again, almost like taking a little vacation from your problems. This is going to help too. And of course, working with a provider, either a clinician for yourself or working with the clinician that works with your teen, with how much they can discuss different issues with you. And another thing to do is to work with a clinician that respects your expertise when it comes to your teen. You've known them their entire lives. You know their patterns. You know what they're like. You know how they think. You know how they feel. So having a provider that can take that information in and respects your input is essential. Remember that anxiety in autistic teenagers isn't something to fix. Rather, I would much rather look at it as a challenge to work on collaboratively with your teen. And with developing appropriate support for these different issues, teenagers are going to be able to use these coping skills, not just nowadays, but be able to carry them forward when they become an adult. And it's going to serve them for the rest of their lives. And most importantly, recognizing that your teen's experience of anxiety makes perfect sense with how they interact and see the world. And by understanding this fundamental truth that their brain processes information a little bit differently and they experience the world a little bit differently, by knowing this, you're going to be a much more effective advocate and supporter and be able to help your teen navigate through their anxiety. If you like this video, please hit like and subscribe. It lets myself know that you enjoyed this video. It also helps the YouTube algorithm send this out to other folks who have similar questions. If you really enjoyed this video, I have another one that's much more comprehensive on teen anxiety in general. Go ahead and check it out. All right, I'll see you there. Bye-bye.